Hello, and just looking back on the football championship weekend, major shock. We're all recovered from the tremor here in Wexford Park, where Gus Ronan have eliminated the holders, Chevaliers. Quite a shock, lads, I think.
Yeah, a big surprise, bearing in mind Gus Ronan's form has been up and down this year, but full value for their win today. They were a better team, I thought. Took their chances very well and played a good brand of football, Ronan. I think they were very impressive today, back to the way they played 3 years ago.
And yet Liam, when Chevaliers went 1-5 to 2 points up early on, or 1-5 to a point up, you couldn't have foreseen Gus Ronan's come back.
Yeah, it could have been a landslide, but they scored 5 points then in a row without reply. And, Mark Ross or Adrian Flynn, if you look, the full forward line scored 1-8 from play. Add in Pádraig Conway's 4 and Sam Wall's 3. Maybe therein lies Shelmaliers' problems, that they got in for easy scores, but when they did get in, they took their chances, and Shelmaliers didn't take their chances. But I think they were the better team today, and I don't think Shelmaliers will have any complaint about it, to be honest, Ronan.
When reflecting upon it, Chevaliers had 3 draws in the group stage. There's also 2 draws in hurling. It does it set in a bit of a malaise, a bit of a struggle to get over things?
I think they had it, in fairness to them, they had a lot of injuries this year, and it's very, very hard. You're operating at the highest level in hurling and football. 1 or 2 injuries can affect the balance of the team and the layout, and they were affected by injuries. They did draw more games than they would have liked, and they weren't as impressive as they have been last year. So but in fairness to them, they defended their title well, but they came up against I thought a slightly better team today.
And obviously the championship, the quarter-final started yesterday with Glenbarntown. So they wasted a lot of chances, but yet they're quite deserving of their victory. St James got back within 4 points, and you wonder if Macho Hanlon, who was injured, had been there. But then again, Barntown were missing John Lacey, and they still got over it while kicking a lot of wides.
Yeah, they were missing Robbie Dempsey as well, Ronan, who was a very good player because of suspension. But there were 2 poor games on Saturday, to be honest. Sometimes that happens by coincidence, that we 2 great games today, Sunday, and we 2 poor games yesterday. Glenbarntown are not a bad team. They have a very good young fella in midfield, Aaron Breen, who I'm sure will come on the radar, the new Wexford senior football manager. They have young Aaron Keogh up front, he's not too bad. Michael O'Regan, when his game hat is on, and it was on for a lot of the game yesterday, he's a handful for any team. St James, as you say, it's very hard to do without Dara Lyons and Matthew O'Hanlon, 2 key players for them, but they gave it their all, and Glenbarntown were the better team. And in the other game, Starlights were probably disappointed. They were it was a disjointed performance from them, and St Martin's just had enough, really. Even though Kieran Ling was firing on one leg, he was still a threat. I'm amazed that St Martin's don't look for him when he's in space. He finds so much space, and he doesn't get the ball in quick enough, in my opinion. If he did, St Martin's would win far more games. Ben Maddock, I think, had a fine game. They moved him back in to cut out the threat of Nick Doyle, and I thought that worked well.
I think one thing St Martin's maybe you'll just throw out there and deserve credit for is to have that composure of defence that Starlights had a lot of chance in the second half yesterday, the St Martins were very resolute and very composed in that resoluteness.
Yeah, because often you can become indisciplined when you're under pressure in the last few minutes of a game, and the Starlights could have had 3 goals really, but there was some heroic defending, blocking, and the keeper made a great save at one stage from Kevin Foley at the start of the second half. So
that was a game changer, really, wasn't it? That was a game changer, because if that goal if there had been a goal, and they alluded to it after, it might have changed the whole complexion of the game, but it didn't happen.
No, but that's ifs and buts. But again, you're right. St Martin's they have the experience, they have the composure, they have go-to players when things aren't going too well, and they stood up yesterday. I thought Dahi Waters was outstanding again. I think he's just a quality player.
Leadership really as well.
Leadership and. Come back to Barntown, you forgot one player that's not too bad either to have to come back, is Mark Fanning, who was injured. There's 3 excellent players that have to come back onto the Barntown team. The only difference between them and Gus Ron, I thought Gus Ron had more options in the forwards. A lot of the ball went through Michael O'Regan yesterday, and he was on fire. I think he scored 2-4, was it, or something like that. He was excellent. So Glenbarntown will have to vary their game plan a little bit, but I suppose why he changed it if it's working for you. So it's going to be an intriguing game, but again, both teams I thought deserved to win their games. They deserved to be in the semi-finals.
And let's not forget we have another team in the semi-finals by name of Castletown who earned their crust today, because PJ, Banfield and Horswood and the lads certainly asked questions.
Yeah, it was outstanding. PJ scored 2-7 and Ben Brosnan scored 1-7, and I suppose the key in this game was that Horswood didn't score against the wind. from play in the second half, and they needed to get a few scores. They lost young Myler after 5 minutes with a silly black card. He might have had a free before that, which he didn't get, and maybe there was a little bit of frustration there because of that. But he was a big loss because he was one player. Speaking to PJ Banville after, they didn't have the likes of him to carry the ball in the second half, and he might have made a significant difference in the second half. But you can't take away from Castletown the rebuilding. They had to play without Jonathan Beelan. They've two good young lads in midfield, as I've said earlier, and it's a very interesting semi-final formation now. But I think we've been talking about doom and gloom in Wexford football for the last 18 months or maybe the last 2 years, but on what we've seen over the last 2 days, there's a lot of young talent, and we've been saying that for a long time in this county, and I think Paul Galvin will be delighted in Shane Roach and Matty Ford, and of course we can talk about Matty Ford after what he did on Friday night. But I think, I think the sun is shining a little bit more brightly on Wexford football after this weekend.
Just a remarkable fact, lads, from the Senior Football Championship, over the last 8 championships, including this one, only Starlights, as the 2017 champions, got in semi-finals the following year. What does that say? I mean, you wouldn't expect champions. I know there's a lot of pressure on them. You said injuries have become a factor 7 years this year. That's remarkable that out of 8 championships, only one of the champions has actually gone on to the semi-finals the following year. I think it's remarkable anyway.
It is a remarkable stat, but I think it just shows the competitiveness of the Wexford. I always say at the Senior Championship, any one of maybe 6 or 7 teams are in contention every year. Obviously the 12 teams aren't. But I think any one of 7 or 8 teams can win it, and that 7 or 8 can actually change every year as well. It could be a different trader in the bottom group comes through, because you see Kyle Nairn were in the county final last year, should have won it in the first game, went to a replay, and then we're in relegation final this year. So I mean, that is competitive stuff. That is.
And that brings us on to our next subject, I suppose, the relegation final Friday night. I think as both were there. A certain 40-year-old came out to tip a ball into the net and made a major impression on things. St Anne's, that brought us so much joy. Yeah. Kyle Nairn brought us so much joy and fascination over the years. Like, it's a hard game to talk about, because obviously your sympathy goes out to one team, but you have sympathy for the position that Kyle Nairn in as well. Yeah,
I suppose if St Anne's had taken their chances, Ronan, that was really the key, wasn't it? They missed too many chances in the actual game itself, and once it got to extra time, you got a little bit of feeling maybe that they might have missed the boat. And when you saw the other fella coming on, you knew then that something might happen. And sure, as ever, he's still able to make it happen, and he did make it happen. I think St Anne's will be kicking themselves initially because they missed. I'm not sure in many ways they missed a host of chances, but it's a pity that one team has to go down. But that's the way it is. I suppose that's the way the system has to be. St Anne's have enough young fellas maybe to bounce back next year, but very difficult to get out that intermediate grade, as we all know.
Exactly, Billy. Yeah. Just your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
we can go forward to the intermediate championship draw then. But
yeah, the relegation final it's an awful game for both clubs. We've been there. The lead up to it is terrible. Every scenario is going through your head, and I do feel for St Anne's being relegated. But I was always full of admiration for Matty Ford, but I mean what he did Friday night again, he's just phenomenal. He's if that signs off his career, what a way to go out. He's done everything. He scored 110 in Croke Park, he scored 212 here, he scored massive scores in county finals, but his contribution last Friday night was as important, if not more important than a lot of those, so just hats off to him. He's a phenomenon.
And I will have to say, though, going forward, the Kyle Nairn know themselves. I believe Pat Ford might step down. He's after putting a lot into it. That going forward, they will have to get young players on board, because they've a tight squad, Ronan, and if they are to stay in senior next year, they will have to find more young players. I know there's a lot of young players coming through. They might be a little bit too young yet, but I think they know themselves that if they want to stay in the senior ranks next year, they'll have to find some new blood. They'll have to bring that young blood through, because if not, they could very well be in the same situation next year, and they won't want that to happen.
Well, it's greedy and fanciful. I think we're going to get another Matty Ford, but sure, I'm going to be greedy and fanciful. Is for the Dominic Smith Electrical Senior Football Championship semi-finals is Glenbarntown against Ronan, and we're going to change jerseys in this second one, St Martin's and Castletown. We presume they're on in the weekend after next, because we have the senior hurling, intermediate hurling, all that action next weekend. Just going to be fascinating. We look forward to being back with you. Hope you enjoyed this short presentation, short review of things. I certainly enjoyed the company of Liam and Billy, and sure, we'll see you again.
Thanks, Ronan.